Okay, look, that's not a
This is the
ridiculous thing to
caliber of
say.
player
What
that
I'm
we're
saying
dealing
right
with
here
is the facts. I am presenting to you the facts of the matter.
Oh, this is gonna be fun.
Oh no. Hello and welcome back into Eric on the Call. We are not live on WPCC LPFM. We are not on 98.7 Roar Radio. We are not even at the top of the hour, ladies and gentlemen. We are not at the radio station. We are at my house. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to my home. But listen, we're still going to have a great show, and we're still going to talk about some sports. Sorry for the break. I needed some time to wrap up finals, and you're looking at a guy with a 4.0 GPA last semester, so I think it was worth it, all right? And personally, I think we all know this. I'm a big sports guy, but I, more than anything, am a big baseball guy at heart. And frankly, we haven't had that much baseball talk as of late. But now the dam has broken with the largest signing in professional sports history. That's right. Juan Soto has found himself a new home. He's not going back to Washington, not going to San Diego. He's not going to Boston. He's not going to Toronto, and he's most certainly not going back to the Bronx because he's catching the subway and moving down to Queens. That's right. The Mets have signed Juan Soto 15 years, $765 million. That is more than Shohei Ohtani got, folks. That is a record breaking landmark contract here that Scott Boras should be very, very proud of because um, that's all him. Because frankly, I don't see a scenario where Juan Soto makes more than Shohei Ohtani. That is absolutely crazy. Now, Shohei wanted to play for the Dodgers. That was quite obvious. And for Juan Soto, it was kind of a toss up. I didn't know if they were going to sign him. I thought that the Mets had a great chance to, but I also thought that the Yankees had a great chance to. And Steve Cohen has deeper pockets. And from Cohen himself, he didn't expect to sign Juan Soto, which tells you how close this was. I did think he was going to stay in New York. I didn't see him going anywhere else. I didn't see him going to Boston. I most certainly did not see him going to Toronto. It's time to pack it up, Blue Jays. It is really, really time to pack it up. And this type of signing for the Mets is one that changes cultures, it changes narratives, it changes everything. Because we can all be personal here, or we can all be honest with ourselves here. The Yankees have not been your daddy's Yankees for 30 years now. Just hasn't been it. They have not been that sort of team. So them going into a bidding war for Soto with the Mets, I think really changes the outlook of New York sports because you could add Aaron Judge paired with Juan Soto for a deep run along with Garrett Cole. That could be your window. That could be a big moment. But now you kind of have stars waning. Look, this is a veteran team for the Yankees, a veteran lineup. They just added Cody Bellinger, which is a veteran. He's a little bit on the younger side, so you can give him a pass there. But they're a little bit aging. They're big boppers, and Judge and Stanton aren't going to be at the most physically fit as a fiddle for the rest of their career. They're going to be more of a DH type, especially with, Giancarlo is the DH, but when Judge ages out of that contract, he's going to be fully a DH. And you just signed Max Fried, who is a late bloomer, and he's on the wrong side of 30 if you're looking at things from that end. So I think the future for the Yankees is a lot less slim than it is for the Mets, and I think that's what Juan Soto looked at. I mean, heck, the Yankees have been praising Jason Dominguez for the past 5 years, and the guy has not been able to break out. He has not had a future spot. He's the future of the franchise, guys. When Jason Dominguez is your future for the franchise, and we've heard about him for 5 years and haven't seen him in that time, there's an issue. But for the Mets, there's a lot of future coming. They have a lot of young stars. They have a lot of guys locked up for a good long time. Lindor is going to be good for a minute. I think their pitching still needs a little bit of help. Of course, they are going to be in the hunt for Roki Sasaki. But I do think the pitching for the Mets needs a little bit of help. But either way, the Kings in New York right now, it's not in a success range. It's in a narrative range. And I think the Mets are beating the Yankees because the Yankees are trying the same old thing. And I don't know, and they're going to have a good roster next year. But if we're looking at the long run of things, I think Juan Soto is better for the culture and the heart of a city than Bellinger and Max Fried and who else did they get? Devin Williams combined. It's just Juan Soto is the type of guy that changes everything. And I mentioned Max Fried is going to the Yankees, of course, 8 years, $218 million. That is the largest contract given out to a left-handed starting pitcher free agent. Absolutely absurd. Myself as a Braves fan, I hated to see Max go, but I'm very, very glad that he got his payday, a much-needed payday for Max Fried. Red Sox came up empty in both affairs, but they do get Garrett Crochet, a good little consolation prize for the Red Sox. But them and Toronto both came up empty in the Fried as well as Juan Soto signings. And for Toronto, I have this. Pack it up. Just pack it up. You were last in the AL East last year. You have no future ahead of you. The core that you have right now cannot hit. It's time to take an honest look at ourselves and say, hey, we got 1 year of both Bichette and Vladdy left. Let's trade these guys, flip them as best as we can, and then set ourselves up better for the future. Your window did not look good to begin with because you continue to underachieve, and I think that's a managerial thing. That's an organizational thing. Wasn't necessarily on the players. It was the guys that you brought in to run the players. So I think Toronto really needs to pack it up, look themselves in the mirror. But I don't think they're going to because, with the extended playoffs, anybody can get hot and get in. See Detroit this year. See Arizona last year. So that obviously won't happen until it's a little bit too late. And also, who's been active? The A's have been quite active. They signed Luis Severino. They traded for Jeffrey Springs. And apparently, they were the runner-up in the Max Fried sweepstakes. So they were willing to pay a bag to lefty Max Fried. And they've done a lot to bolster their rotation, which I think was the weakest part of their team. I think that hitting core might be a little bit interesting next year. They're not going to be anything to write home about, but you can get hit hot at the right time, as I just said before. But frankly, these prices have been out of control as well. I mentioned Fried for 218. Severino got a bag, even though he's coming off of one good year in the past, five? It's been absolutely out of control. And the Dodgers are continuing to defer as much of that out of control spending as possible. Tommy Edman, that deferred contract, that's going back. They had a lot more extensions. And speaking of deferrals, Rob Manfred has finally spoken up about it and said that, they're problematic, which surprised me. I thought that whatever helps the big market team, Rob Manfred's going to adhere to. But Rob Manfred said, hey, this is a bad thing. We saw this with the Diamondbacks in 2004. $254 million worth of deferrals that forced Jerry Colangelo out of his out of his spot with the team. But listen, the Dodgers are a different situation. They have a lot more money, but they do have over $1 billion in deferred money. So it could end the same way. I mean, look, the Diamondbacks were one of the worst teams of the decade after that championship in 2001. So we could see that again with the deferred money in Los Angeles. I don't think so. I think it's a completely different situation. But I do agree with the commissioner that these are quite problematic. And it kind of ruins the competitive market when you have teams that can just say, oh, we're just going to defer this until the sun explodes, right? We're going to defer this one until 2082. Whatever. Just push the money back. We're going to win now. The next ownership group will, they'll die on the sword for us as long as we win 2 World Series, which the Dodgers are one away from, reaching that 2 World Series mark, which I think nowadays in the competitive realm of baseball, that's dang near a dynasty right there. Speaking of competitiveness, we have seen some teams in the NFL fall out of that tree completely. Teams that looked poised to make a splash in their respective divisions have faltered quite a bit. The NFC South, I said at the beginning of the year, along with one of my former guests, Chloe Spradlin, that it was going to be the Falcons division. Look, the Bucs had a good team coming back, but with the narrative and with the everything, if you're in the Falcons spot, the heck was that? You're in the Falcons spot. You want to come back and you want to win this. This is the narrative that you wanted to push. Well, they went from 6-3 to 6-7, despite they won last time out against the Raiders. They're 7-7, and the Bucs have completely come back from a weak start. They are completely running over things. Baker Mayfield 4 touchdown passes against the Chargers last time out, completely blowing them out. That's a scary thought. But here's the thing. Thanks to Kirk Cousins, you swept the Bucs early on, so you hold that edge over them. But you won't be thanking Kirk Cousins for much longer, as he has been benched in favor of the 8th overall pick, Michael Penix Jr., and that pick's not looking too bad now, is it? I was clowned a good bit when I said that I liked the Penix pick back in the day, because look, this Kirk Cousins contract was never going to be guaranteed a 4-year. It just simply never was. It was at best a 2-year contract. That's how it was going to be touted. That's how it was actually going to play out. And people, for whatever reason, just did not want to see that. But Michael Penix is going to get the shot. He's going to get the reins on Sunday night primetime football against the Commanders. A little bit of, as a Falcons fan, a little bit scary. I don't exactly know what Penix is going to bring to the table. I do think he was maybe top one or two, or top 2 or 3 in the draft class in terms of QBs. I don't think he was better than Caleb Williams, and he has not. And Bo Nix has kind of come out of nowhere and surprised me a little bit. I knew Jaden Daniels was going to be good. I don't know if Michael Penix is going to come up to that standard. Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, and Jaden Daniels all have had pretty good seasons. I know Caleb Williams' season looks bad comparatively because the Bears are such a horror show for let's keep it family friendly here. So again, I'm not as stressed about them as I would be, but for Michael Penix, so he's going to get his shot. Hopefully he takes it. Hopefully he looks good to keep the Falcons in the playoff hunt as they are still, I believe, a half game outside of Tampa Bay. The 49ers also find themselves last in the division that at the beginning of the season, everyone thought that they were going to be able to cakewalk through. Look, they were touted last season as having the most talented roster in the NFL, and I thought coming into this year they were much the same. But listen, let's give them a little bit of a break. Let's give them a little bit of pass. Let's give Shanahan a little bit of a pass here. They've been very injured. Very, very injured. I can let them slide, but there are also some things that need cleaning up, such as Deebo Samuel. Where has he been? Ever since that whole contract issue at the beginning of the year, he has not shown up in the slightest. So the 49ers are hurting. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. They are at the bottom of the division, but it is a weak division that they can come back and steal because the Rams are still in the hunt, and they're in second place. They should be winning that division, but the Seahawks are ahead of them. And because I think they have the best roster in that division currently. Excuse me, I have to clear my throat. But as I said, I think they have the best roster in that division currently, and that is currently playing now on paper. I think the 49ers still have a lot more talent, but as they're playing right now currently, you look at the roster and you say, okay, I like these guys. I like the way they're going right now. I think the Rams should come back and win that division over the Seahawks, who I frankly did not expect to be in this position at the beginning of the season. I thought they were going to be kind of a third-place team, maybe fringe second-place team. I didn't think that they were going to be this interesting. I mentioned the Bears before. Their playoff dreams are done for, but listen, Bears fans, you kind of did win already this season. Matt Eberflus is gone. He can't torture anymore, and he was fired mid-season, which is very important because it gives them time to really go ahead and make a plan for who they're going to go get. Obviously, Ben Johnson's the guy that people want to go see, that the fans want to go get. I would love Ben Johnson in Chicago. I think it would fit great with an offensively minded quarterback such as Caleb Williams. But, I'm glad Eberflus is gone. I think Eberflus really held that team down in the offensive category. A lot of people praised his defense, but at the end of the season, I don't think that or at the end of his line with the Bears, I don't think his defense was really anything to write home about. I frankly think that he got away with a lot more than he should have. And thankfully for Chicago, they will be head coach searching this offseason. And hopefully they land on a good one because Matt Eberflus was just not it. You wanted Jim Harbaugh about that last cycle. Bet you wish you had Harbaugh right now. And the Ravens. Woof! I thought the Ravens were going to win that division. Easy money. Pittsburgh does have devil magic. I'll give you that. They have a load of devil magic. And that devil magic can be quite scary. And you're just a game behind Pittsburgh, but I thought that this Ravens squad was going to have no issue in the slightest running over that division. I thought that the Pittsburgh Steelers might finish out of the playoffs, maybe in fourth place, mostly because I'm just not a big believer in Arthur Smith, but he has ran the offense quite well. You got to give it to him on that regard. Anyway, enough Pittsburgh praise here. We're talking about Baltimore and how they've come up short. That defense is atrocious. My goodness. They can score all the points in the world. Derrick Henry can run. Lamar Jackson can run. That offensive core can be outstanding. But the problem is they're allowing 25-plus points a game, which is not what you want to see out of a proposed Super Bowl contender. Imagine if they run into the Chiefs again. The Chiefs are going to run all over them. Or will they? Because guess what? Patrick Mahomes is hurt. Allegedly, I think it's storyline building, frankly. But he did go down with a high ankle sprain. Carson Wentz came in for him. But Mahomes was back at practice today. So all things indicate that he's coming back. Either way, I don't know if you're going to get over them simply because I think that they're a different animal in the playoffs. It's not even a think. I know they're a different animal in the playoffs, even if Mahomes is having a subpar season. Whew. Staying in the football realm, we are getting ready for the inaugural 12-team playoff. That's going to get going this weekend. But the seeding in that, oh my goodness. We're going to break down the bracket after I take a sip of water and a little bit of a breather. Alrighty, so staying in the football realm, like I said, we're going to go into the college football playoff seeding, the bracket seeding. Let's go ahead and break down the byes and their respective seeds. So Oregon, obviously, the number 1 seed gets that bye for being the Big Ten champion. Arizona State gets the Big 12 championship. Arizona coming out of nowhere, and they'll be ranked as the 12th seed. They snuck in, or didn't sneak in. They won their conference. Give it to them, but 12th seed. Power ranking, whatever. UGA will be at number 2. They're SEC champions in a game that Texas should have won. They 100% should have won that game. I don't know what happened there, but that was one of the most disappointing football SEC championship football games I've ever watched, frankly. So UGA, either way, came out with a win. They're ranked as the 2nd team in the nation going into the playoff. Then Boise State with the Heisman snub, Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty had the highest PFP rating for Heisman winners in the past decade, I believe it was. He was higher than 2019 Joe Burrow, 95.3, and he still lost to Travis Hunter, who was the lowest ranked. Shows you that sometimes media should not vote on these awards. That's completely ridiculous, especially if you're going to go by these ranking systems. You're going to put them out to the masses. You can't let people see how wrong you were. Even if you want to stick to the narrative that you were correct, you don't have numbers to back you up. Travis Hunter did win that award. Jeanty snubbed, especially by if we're using the metrics, not even just by word of mouth. If we're using the rankings, which every Heisman ranking up there has been valid, if we're using that number, then Jeanty should have won and should be one of the best Heisman winners of all time. But because he doesn't have Deion Sanders, because he didn't have Shedeur Sanders, so because he doesn't have the media force behind him that Colorado has, he's not going to win it. Also, shout out to Ashton Jeanty. He was the only Heisman nominee to wear his team colors at the award ceremony. Shout out to him. That's big praise. You should do that. The school pushed you there, put you in that position. At least honor them by wearing the color scheme just a little bit. So again, that's your 4 byes: Oregon, Arizona State, UGA, and Boise State. Now, here is the rounds, the round ones. It is Ohio State ranked number 6 versus Tennessee, who is ranked number 7. Texas, who is number 3, and versus Clemson, ranked number 16. Yes, sir. Notre Dame is ranked number 5. They'll be facing off against Indiana, number 8. Why did they? Oh, the Indiana Bowl. Notre Dame and Indiana, that's going to burn the state down. I can't wait for that one. And then Penn State, number 4, versus SMU, number 10. SMU sneaking in front of Alabama. Now, again, this seeding is not where it should be. If you look at the bracket, I'll throw up an image of the bracket right here, just for reference. I might keep it up here. I don't know. I'm going to drop my hand, though. How in the hell did Oregon get this bad hand dealt to them? They're the number 1. So let's assume all the higher seeds here come out in those games. You have to beat Ohio to get to the semis, and then you have to beat Texas. You have to beat 2 of the toughest teams in the nation in order to just try to get to a national championship. Now, Oregon is the best team in the country, and they were the entire season. Again, the only team they did play is Ohio State, though, so take that as you will. But either way, you're ranked 1. You need an easier schedule. You just flat out do. Penn State has an easier path to the title than Oregon does, and Penn State is ranked number 4, 3 spots below Oregon. Toughest team that they'll face, Penn or Boise, depending on who comes out in that, is UGA, which is a tough team, but after recent showings versus Texas and Tech, and with Stetson Bennett, oh my goodness gracious, I'm so sorry. That's Stetson Bennett. Carson Beck being on the shelf because of UCL sprain, I believe it was. Let me check the recent status on that one, But as I last saw, Carson Beck was unavailable with a UCL issue that was suffered during the SEC championship game. Um, and the guy who came in, Gunnar Stockton, really electrified that Georgia lineup or that Georgia team on the field. So I do think that Gunnar Stockton is capable of doing it. I don't think he's the best QB in the field, not in the slightest. I think a lot of QBs have him beat. But it is going to be a very tough path for UGA. But we've seen this before for UGA, where they have to turn to an unknown or have to turn to a guy who isn't as touted or isn't as well known, and they do well. And look, Gunnar Stockton won that SEC championship for the Dogs. Granted, it was against Steve Sarkisian, who I don't think he knew what he was doing out there. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Georgia's biggest weapon is Kirby Smart. That's just bottom line. Georgia's biggest weapon is Kirby Smart, and depending on how he utilizes his guys, there's not a coach in the country better than him. There really isn't. The one coach that was better than him is retired. He's gone. Saban's gone. Who's left? So Kirby Smart is the best coach, and I do think that gives gives UGA a decent edge over everybody. Now, granted, all that said about UGA's weaknesses, they should still beat Boise State. If given the chance to beat Boise State again, that let's assume that all the higher seeds move on there. Notre Dame should win that bout against Indiana. I don't think that Indiana is very good at all. I was banging the table for a good long while that Indiana did not need to be as highly ranked as they were simply because they were undefeated. I mean, we all need to take a step back and look at strength of schedule here because that is absolutely ridiculous how Indiana got away with that for that long. But look, Hoosiers did what they did, and they'll be playing Notre Dame, and Notre Dame should beat them. Notre Dame should come out on top in that Indiana Bowl, but that's going to be, like I said, that's going to be interesting. It's going to be a little bit of a bloodbath. And speaking of the easy schedules, like I said about Indiana, guess who suddenly comes out about strength of schedule now that they're not in the playoff or now that they lost something? Oh, it's Alabama. It's Nick Saban. He said that Alabama had a better strength of schedule than the team that got in over them, which was SMU. To which I would say, you lost to 2 6-6 teams in the SEC. You lost to Oklahoma, who frankly should not be an SEC team because they don't have. I'm not going to take Oklahoma over an Ohio State or an Oregon. I'll barely take them over a Clemson. I do say I'm a very SEC biased person that I do think it is the best conference. I think it's the best competition. But when you lose against Vandy and Oklahoma in the same season and Tennessee, but I give Tennessee a pass because they're in the playoff. They're ranked number 7. I give that one a pass. But that performance against Oklahoma was pitiful. Absolutely pitiful. And it turned out to be the nail in their coffin. And if you win one of those games, you're going to the playoff. It's that simple. You just have to beat Oklahoma. That's all you had to do. But you laid an egg. You scored a field goal. That was it. That's all that Alabama did. It's because I said this. One last victory lap for Eric. I said that the offense was inconsistent. I said that Milroe and Ryan Williams cannot do the job the entire time. You need a running back. You need something else. Look what happened. The one touchdown that was scored was Ryan Williams' big pass reception. That was come back due to a frankly stupid penalty call, which I'll give you that. So let's say it's just, you score 10, you still lose, either way. And the defense could never make the big stop. And Jackson Arnold had his way with that Alabama defense. He was constantly able to convert. That's what the big thing was in that game, is that Alabama could not stop the conversion from third down to fourth down. They could not stop Jackson Arnold and Oklahoma from pushing over the line. And like I said, they cannot make the big stop, and they show that time and time and time again. And once again, I was proven right. And like I said, I did not hate Alabama coming into this year, but from some of the very rude things that were said to me online, I was kind of pushed into that one. So I don't really feel bad about that anymore. So time for a little bit of a prediction. I've said it before. I don't like predicting sports on this show, but let's go ahead for the sake of it being the playoffs, and we'll just predict things. Let's go ahead and do it. So Ohio, I think, should beat Tennessee. I can see a world where Ohio is not built for the moment, or let me clarify, Ryan Day is not built for the moment because I've been very critical about Ryan Day. I think he's the one thing that's holding this talented roster back, and is the coach, and that's a bad thing. I mean, he got the snot beat out of him by Michigan. He lost to Oregon. Um, it's a bad way for Ryan Day, but I do think talent wise they should overcome Tennessee. But again, I can't see where will Tennessee goes in. I can see that. I'm not gonna put that down, but for the sake of this one, I'm gonna go Ohio, Texas over Clemson. That one's pretty easy. Notre Dame over Indiana. Like I said, Notre Dame should win that one. And then Penn State over SMU. I can see a situation where SMU can do it, but I think Penn State, they had a good season. They're going to continue to have a good season. Give me Penn State over that one. Give me Oregon over Ohio. That's very easy. I mean, Oregon won the mental battle once before. I don't think that Ohio is going to come back in and after the blows that they've been dealt in the past couple of weeks, they're going to be able to come in and defeat the Ducks. And then the run for Arizona State, unfortunately, should end here. I think it's going to. Texas should easily move on after that one. So good for Texas. They're going to keep rolling. They're a great team. Um, they should go ahead and roll over Texas or roll over Clemson, then roll over Arizona State. As for the other side of the bracket, UGA and Notre Dame is a tough one because, like I said, because you're going with Gunnar Stockton, who I don't know too much about Gunnar Stockton, but from what I saw, he was okay. He was okay versus Texas. He wasn't great, but he gave them a little bit of something. He did the checkdowns. He did what every young QB or a backup QB should do, and that's not kill his team. He didn't kill the Dogs there. He put them in a good position to win. That's exactly what the Dogs did. Now, there's a situation where Notre Dame can win here. There really is. Because of UGA maybe not having the QB play at their helm. But in situations such as this, where the offense is bad, I always turn back to a defense, and I don't know if I'm on record saying it, but there are very scarce things in college football that beats an SEC defense, and I do think that UGA's defense is going to help them out here a good bit. And who knows? Maybe Gunnar Stockton has a fantastic game. So that could happen as well. Penn State and Boise. Very interesting. Very interesting. Let's be fun and give Boise a shot here. I think Boise can definitely do it. I think Heisman snub Genty is going to have a great game. And I do think, and I've said this before, Penn State did not play anybody, and look how they almost lost to Wisconsin. And they were still ranked high after that. I'm sorry, not Wisconsin, Minnesota. They were still ranked highly after that near loss, but either way, I think Boise State should win this one. I think that they're going to do just enough. They're going to do just enough to get over. Oregon and Texas. There's a world here where Texas is able to beat Oregon. But I think Oregon, having all the momentum in the world this year, is going to be able to beat them up a little bit more. But here's a wild card thing. Here's something I want to talk about. Oregon has a little bit of an age issue at the quarterback position, right? But Texas has two young quarterbacks. And I've been very critical about how Sarkisian has deployed those two young quarterbacks, specifically putting in Manning just for one snap or whatever when they're obviously going to run the ball. I've been quite critical about that, but I do think that having those two quarterbacks and mixing up the play can behoove them. So you know what? I think I'm going to flip here. I think I'm going to flip. I think Oregon's undefeated season is going to come to an end. But I could be very wrong. Like I said, I don't like predicting sports. They're unpredictable. You can never tell if someone's going to have a good or bad game. So give me Texas. That's not my notes. I think I'm gonna flip here. So give me Texas in the college football playoff, and that would leave UGA and Boise. UGA should beat Boise pretty handily, and that gives us UGA and Texas. It's something we've seen 3 times. It's something we would have seen 3 times now, 2 times. And Kirby Smart has beaten up Steve Sarkisian before. This is kind of the clash that's been leading this entire season. If you've been following the SEC, this is kind of the narrative. Who's the best in the SEC? Is it the old guard of Georgia, the old dog, or is it the new blood coming in? Well, I think if you put them I think if you put them up against each other a third time, I think Kirby Smart's winning again. He has ran the playbook all up and down Steve Sarkisian. I think that win in Texas after a week long of getting beaten down narratively by the media about how they're just not worth it or they're just going to fall down and falter, I think that really stirred something up inside of him. I think he's going to coach a hell of a game in the college football playoff and or a set of games in the college football playoff, and I think it's going to come up again with him hoisting a trophy for his squad, continuing to be one of the best college coaches of this generation. Um, yeah, I listen. I'm not a UGA shill. I'm not a UGA guy. But just looking at how they've managed and how admirable of a job that Kirby Smart has done, and how much I do think he is the best coach in the nation right now. I scarcely believe that there is a way that many teams can overcome that big psychological hump that comes with playing against Kirby Smart. So again, I don't like to predict things, but give me Georgia to win it all this year to collect their third championship in the past 5 years. Give me that one. So I'm going to take another quick break, and then we're going to move into MLB talk and talk about free agency, about what teams have done and what teams haven't done. Alrighty, so just wait just a second for how long I want to make the transition. So, alrighty, let's break down some MLB moves. Free agency has picked up, and the big buyers are out there buying. They're still competing for those prizes. I mentioned at the top that Juan Soto has a home, Max Fried has a home. Let's talk about those two New York teams. Let's start off with the Mets. And they're not done. They are not even close to where their payroll was last year, so watch out. Watch out. Free agents beware. Steve Cohen's going to knock on your door pretty soon. But this is their additions to this point. Frankie Montas and Clay Holmes to land into that rotation. Clay Holmes is going to slot into that rotation. I believe they have said early on. But they want Clay Holmes to start. And if he doesn't, you have a pretty good reliever too. Frankie Montas is in there to anchor that rotation. I still think that the Mets need a frontline guy to pair with Kodai Senga, whether that be what Sean Manaea gave them last year. You can go get Sean Manaea. He's still out there. Obviously, Luis Severino's gone. But I don't like to bank on those free agent guys. I would love to see the Mets develop some pitching, and they do have some on the way from what I understand. So it'll be interesting to see if they can actually do that. But until then, I'm going to take, I'd put, Clay Holmes in the rotation, Frankie Montas. They're going to fill out 4 and 5 or 3 and 4, however you want to slice that. And of course, the big one, the big guy, Juan Soto. As I said at the top, it's the type of thing that changes cultures, changes narratives, changes everything. I love Juan Soto in the Mets. Juan Soto is one of my favorite players, so seeing him play on the Mets is going to hurt my soul. I would much rather have him back on the Nationals because don't tell the Braves fans this, I like the Nationals a good bit. I'm a big fan of the Nationals. Either way, great signing by them. Isn't it overpay? Yeah, it's an overpay, but you know what? You would just have to do it. Just go and do it right now, and now you're locked. You're good for the next 15 years. Or if he opts out after 5 years, which you had 5 years with Juan Soto, I think that's a fantastic contract for the Mets. And then we have for the Yankees, Cody Bellinger just got traded there. I believe Cody Boteat and others were getting sent over to Chicago. I don't know what the Cubs are doing at all. They are a very silly franchise right now. They threw money around a couple seasons ago. They signed Jameson Taillon. They had Marcus Stroman also in that rotation. They signed Dansby Swanson and Seiya Suzuki. They have all that money in the world. And now they trade Cody Bellinger, who they signed. Sorry, I've moved my mic away. Who they did sign to big bucks. And now they trade for Kyle Tucker and get rid of Isaac Paredes. Why would you do that? You get Paredes at the deadline for a good bit, good number. You send who'd they send? Not Nico Horner, the other one. Goodness gracious, no way I'm blanking on this name. Either way, you send one of your infielders over to Tampa Bay, and you get Paredes, who is going to be good. He's still under control, and then you flip him to Houston, and Houston sends Kyle Tucker that way. So you lose Bellinger, you lose Paredes, and you gain Kyle Tucker to pair with Seiya Suzuki? That makes no sense to me. The Cubs make absolutely zero sense to me. But thankfully, they're not the worst ran organization in Chicago. Either way, back to the Yankees talk. They get Cody Bellinger, which I thought that they were actually going to swing for the fences for Cody Bellinger last offseason and sign him to a big deal because he screams Yankee. Big lefty home run swing guy, can play first base, which is a need for the Yankees, and can play the outfield, which Aaron Judge does not need to be in center field. It's just bad for his health. I thought he screamed Yankees, but they didn't go get him. I don't know why they didn't go get him. But I think now that ownership and the general manager, they got a taste of the World Series. They said, "Oh, we can get there. We can get there. Let's go spend. Let's go get some money. Let's go put some money out there." And they have put out some money. Max Fried, $218 million, and Devin Williams. My goodness, Devin Williams. Not on my soapbox about the Braves just yet, but yeah, the Braves traded Caleb Durbin to the Yankees for Lucas Litke a couple seasons ago. Lucas Litke really irritated me as a pitcher because I would get so hyped up for him to come in. His walkout song was swag surfing. Everyone gets swag surfing, and then this guy would come up and serve batting practice. So anyway, so they lose Nestor Cortez and Caleb Durbin, which I think Durbin is the big piece of that trade for the Brewers. Then the Dodgers, talked about the Dodgers a little bit. They got Blake Treinen, Michael Conforto, which I think is going to be a fantastic signing for them because if they don't get Teoscar Hernandez back, you have a pretty good left-handed bat for Michael Conforto. I think he did really well with the Giants, and if you look at his home road splits, again, because playing in Oracle Park is pretty bad for a batter because it's just so cavernous. But if you look at his road splits and away splits, his StatCast, his profile looks amazing, and especially you put him in the Dodgers hitting lab that resurrected Jason Hayward's career. What are they going to do for Michael Conforto? He's going to beat the crap out of a baseball. So I can't wait for that one. Can't wait to see what he looks like in a Dodger uniform. And then Tommy Edman was extended, which I mentioned the deferrals. Manfred's not happy about the deferrals. Hopefully the Dodgers get the memo. $1 billion in deferrals for L.A. I kind of clowned on the Red Sox earlier, but they did get a couple of interesting additions. They got Aroldis Chapman and Garrett Crochet. Aroldis going to fill into the back end of that bullpen, but they do lose a good bit in that bullpen. Chris Martin and Kenley Jansen mainly, they're not on the team anymore. So putting Chapman in there, who hasn't been fantastic as of late. He wasn't good enough to get traded at the deadline by the Pirates, but then again, the Pirates are an interestingly ran organization. I'll put it that way. But of course, he went from the Royals to the Rangers, won a World Series. Then he signed with the Pirates this last offseason. Didn't get traded at the deadline, which I think that's kind of alarm bells. But the guy still has a humongous arm, can get up there at a lot of speed, and apparently the Red Sox are his favorite team. So he's going to go get to play for his favorite team. I mentioned Kyle Tucker to the Cubs and how much that makes zero sense to me. And here's some teams that have not done anything to suit their needs. Red Sox. They got Garrett Crochet. Still need a little bit more because that pitching is very suspect. Blue Jays. Pack it up, guys. The Phillies signed a reliever. The Braves signed Brian De La Cruz and traded Jorge Soler. The Astros traded away Kyle Tucker, but they got Isak Perez. But Alex Bregman's still out there. The Mariners aren't going to do anything. If you're holding out for the Mariners, don't bother. The Royals have not done anything after a playoff appearance. That's kind of bad. That's kind of worrying. Cleveland is not going to do anything, and the Padres have not done anything. Ha-Seong Kim is their biggest free agent, and he has not indicated where he's going to sign yet. Of course, the guy's a great shortstop defender. He's coming off a shoulder surgery, which I think does add a little bit of a scare to a lot of teams because while we know a lot about this, we don't know a lot about this. But that's more for pitchers, so I don't know how it's going to work for hitters on the market. I don't know what the front offices are thinking about Ha-Seong Kim. I would love to have Ha-Seong Kim on my team because he's great at shortstop. He's great at any other infield position. I think they had him play outfield at one point. And all you need to do is have him hit a little bit. And the guy unlocked his hitting potential over the past couple seasons in San Diego, which is not a pitcher-friendly, or is a pitcher-friendly ballpark. So I think whoever gets Ha-Seong Kim, so long as he doesn't go to a bad ballpark, is going to be so happy that they got a steal on the market. especially with how much Willie Adames signed, especially with how much Xander Bogaerts, Dansby Swanson signed for last offseason. I think Hassan Kim is probably, especially out of those three, maybe Exxon Willie Adames, but I think he's better talent-wise than all three of those guys, especially at this stage in their respective careers. I told you we'd talk about the Braves because I have a lot to say about the Braves, so let's go ahead and do it. The Braves have made 0 additions talent-wise, and that makes me a very angry boy. That makes me an angry man. Because you need to fill a spot in the rotation, you need to fill a spot in the outfield, and you need to do something at shortstop. You just frankly do. Even if it's a backup infielder. Would love to see that, because they don't have a backup infielder right now. Orlando Arcia is getting paid backup infielder money, and he's not a backup infielder. He's the starter. He is the starting shortstop for the Atlanta Braves. And this guy had a 76 WRC plus last season. The league average is 100. This guy was 13 points below. Of course, this is not a personal attack on Orlando. I like him in the Braves clubhouse. He seems like a great guy, but you got to play better. That's not even bench player worthy. You just got to play better if you're Orlando Arcia. And if you're the Braves and you see he's not going to play better, you got to go out and do something. Now, I've said this before, I don't think the Braves are going to go out there and do anything because the Braves never want to play in the free agent market. Granted, this is a very exorbitant market, a very expensive market. I respect that. But there is a world where eventually you have to pay for the high-end talent, and that's something that Alex Anthopoulos in his tenure in Atlanta has shown he does not want to do. His highest free agent contract that he shelled out wasn't even good. It wasn't even to a good baseball player. It was Will Smith. 3 for $74 million, I believe. But still. I think the Braves are going to do something. I don't know what it's going to be for them, especially they need depth, though. They do need a good bit of depth because we saw how weak they were in that category this last season. Now, granted, this season was a season from hell where they had every injury in the book happen to them. They also have to cover something in the bullpen because even after the season, Joe Jimenez went down with knee surgery, and he's not going to be back for next year. So you got to find something in the bullpen as well. It's a very tricky situation in Atlanta, and I kind of respect that. I'm understanding what's happening here in Atlanta, but I'm also understanding that they say the payroll is going to go up every single year. And the most they do is sign Jordan Luplow. They did it twice. I'm looking at him. I'm thinking they're going to sign him a third time. If I had to call the Braves offseason right now, I would call it Charlie Morton re-signed for 1 year and $12 million, $10 million, and some contract, split contract given to Jordan Luplow. That's what I would call the Braves offseason right now if I had to make a prediction. But it's mid-December, and the market has moved quite fast for pitchers, and it's been quite expensive, especially for pitchers. So, it's whatever. For all these teams that I mentioned, Sox, Jays, Phillies, Braves, Astros, Mariners, Royals, Cleveland, Padres, all those guys are vying for a playoff spot. The Mariners, of course, blew that lead. They have new manager going into this year. But it's mid-December. You can still make these moves. Of course, offices are going to shut down around Christmas time. But then you have stuff for the new year to come back to. So let me take a quick break real quick. Wrapping up some other folks from around the baseball world. Talking about two bad teams, the A's and the White Sox now. I know there's been a narrative about the A's over the past couple years. Now, frankly, I think I have voiced my opinion on the organization, and most certainly John Fisher. We don't do personal attacks on this show, but if I were to personally, go after someone, it would be John Fisher. I mean, he's just done a terrible job to the fan base, a terrible job to the team. It's just abhorrent what he's done. And let me tell you something, and this is true. The A's don't have a stadium in Vegas. They have bought the land, but the mayor of Las Vegas has not cleared them for a opportunity to go to Vegas. That's the truth. That's not a lie. That's the truth. So I think John Fisher is a complete moron when it comes to the situation and how we handled it with Oakland. Now, Oakland also didn't give him a lot of breathing room. I'll give him that. But that's still no excuse for the way he treated the fan base of that city. Because without your fans, you're nothing. And the A's, who are no longer the Oakland A's, they're just the A's, are playing in a minor league ballpark. That is just disrespectful to generations of fans. That's what I'll say about John Fisher. And I've said it before. I said we don't do personal attacks, but that is as far as I'll go in that realm, and it's after John Fisher. Now, also, the A's, people want to rag on them for being a terribly ran organization in the front office and in the team and the game aspect sort of thing. But we've seen this from the A's before where they go through a fire sale and then they come back with talent and then they look okay. They look surprisingly decent. And I told you that they're buying a little bit in this year's offseason. They were runner-ups in the Max Fried deal. They got Severino. They got Springs. That lineup looks young and exciting. I think the A's are going to be sneaky next year, especially with how the AL West is looking. It looks wide open. Heck, the Angels could have a shot next year after they signed Travis d'Arnaud and got Jorge Soler. All they need is a little bit of pitching help, right? The AL West, I think, is going to be an exciting division. Not because everyone's going to be good. I want to see who's going to race to the mountaintop first. Who's going to be at the top of a hill first? Not even a mountain. It's like a little hill. This is a mountain. This is a hill, right? Who's gonna plant their flag? Either way, I like the A's for next year. I think, if anything, it's going to be a great step in the right direction for that team. And the White Sox, talked about second bad team, the worst team in baseball history. In theory, they should be getting better, especially with the 4 prospects that they got from the Garrett Crochet trade. But they're not fixing any of their coaching staff. You can put as much lipstick on a skeleton as you want to; it's still going to be a skeleton. And I think that's an upper management thing, because I think you hire Grady Sizemore, it would be assumed that he wants to bring in somebody else or some other people, but nope, he's just running the same people out there, right? I think that is a management decision. So they're running it back. I think they're going to be basically the same team next year, because I don't even know if they're buying a stock pitcher in free agency. Embarrassing franchise in White Sox. Hopefully they don't move to Nashville. I really hope that they stay in the South Side for the remainder of their storied franchise history. So let's move to NFL talk. I talked about how there are some division winners. There are some division, not losers, but division disappointments. Let's go ahead and talk about who's winning some divisions. Now, some divisions are still in the midst of everything. We're going to talk about the teams that have actually locked theirs up, mainly the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Eagles. Eagles haven't actually clinched yet, but they're kind of moving in that direction. The Chiefs have stumbled and sleptwalked their way there. Everyone expected that to happen because they are such a silly franchise, or not a silly franchise, silly team this year. They can be silly and goofy and then just turn it on to three-peat, because that's what's going to happen, isn't it? We're so cursed. And then the Bills, Josh Allen has gone absolutely nuclear. Thank you. Nuclear since announcing his engagement to Haley Steinfeld, which I get it. I get it. Oh, look at me. I'm Josh Allen. I'm one of the best QBs in the NFL. My team might win the Super Bowl. I'm marrying Haley Steinfeld. Shut up. Shut up, you dork. And then the Eagles, Eagles have been sneaky good this year, I will say, because I think a lot of people like to hate on Jalen Hurts, and I might be one of those people because I don't like Philadelphia. But that's not going to stop me from saying that this team is legit now. I was very critical of Nick Sirianni going into this year, and I still don't believe fully in Nick Sirianni, but I think the player-led movement, and especially since the front office took away some of his responsibilities, mainly on the defensive and offensive side of the ball, with Vic Fangio and a couple other their offensive pieces that were brought in the offseason, taking away control from Nick Sirianni a little bit. I do like that. For the Eagles, and I think they're going to be very dangerous. I think they're definitely going to lock that up. Mentioned the Ravens early on. The Ravens have a terrible defense, but they are still a very good offense. They have a plus 86 point differential. But like I said, there are a couple bad defenders from being the Bengals, right? They're dangerously close to being the Bengals, who are they going to make the playoffs? I'd say no, definitely not. I mean, they're 6-8. I guess in theory you can win out, but I don't think it's going to happen. But Baltimore 9-5, below the Pittsburgh Steelers, who they just couldn't beat. They couldn't do that for me. It couldn't be earlier. They didn't play them last week, but they couldn't beat them earlier. But they couldn't beat them for me. I don't like Pittsburgh. They irritate the mess out of me. And they're 10-4. They're leading the North. So I do think that Pittsburgh can lock that up. It's going to take bad play from Pittsburgh for the Ravens to catch up, which is very possible. I think that eventually the deal with the Devil is going to end, and we'll see who wins the Devil Magic Bowl between Kansas City and the Steelers. I kind of blanked there, excuse me. But that is the Devil Magic Bowl of all time. So mentioned the Ravens, they're going to need their defense to really step up in the playoffs. They're going to go to the playoffs, but they really need their defense to step it up because it has been pretty rough. Washington is marching towards a playoff spot despite Jaden Daniels kind of falling off a little bit. I kind of expected that. Jaden Daniels he's still a rookie, still one of the younger rookies too. But they still set at a plus 81 point differential. I still believe in that offense. I think it's okay, but I think the defense is a little bit better. It's a team that did not have many expectations coming in this year. What they're doing right now is okay. It's A-okay. If they make the playoffs, great. If they don't, it's a great year to build on. I mentioned how disappointed I was in the Bears this year. I didn't expect them to win the division at all, especially with Detroit running there. But I also didn't expect them to be 4-10 right now. Despite Caleb Williams having a good year. He's having a fine year for a quarterback, or a rookie quarterback. He's fine. But he's been sacked like 60 times, which isn't entirely his fault. And he can scarcely find an ability to get someone open. They've paid a lot of money for some good receivers, But I do think a lot of the problem is the offensive line just can't give him time to roll. They can't give him time to do anything other than get sacked. So I think that should be a target for the Chicago Bears front office is go get some really good linemen either in the draft or in the free agency. Do something to help out your guy. Change the narrative that this isn't going to be a place. Chicago is not a place where good QBs go to rot, where QB prospects go to rot. Change the narrative. You already changed it once before by firing a coach midseason. Do it again. Let's do that again. Now Detroit again has locked it up. They've locked up that division. Minnesota, or excuse me, no, not Detroit. Goodness, I got Detroit and Buffalo mixed up. It's been a long day. But Detroit and the Vikings are neck and neck, 12-2. I don't know how the Vikings are doing this. Obviously, Sam Darnold has a lot of talent. I think we all knew that, but we didn't know he was going to perform to this aspect. But with the offensive people just laid out in front of him, like they are, this is the best offensive situation that Darnold's been in his entire career, and he's really showing out with it. He's making a case for an MVP. But I think in the end of the day, Detroit's going to come away with that one. I think Detroit is just a machine this year. But there is a world where they can't make it through because they've had some back-breaking injuries, specifically David Montgomery most recently, but they have been injured all season long, which proves to me that they can just keep on chugging. So I do believe in the Lions a little bit more than the Vikings. Packers are 10-4. Kind of wanted the Packers to be a little bit better, but they're still good. It's still a very competitive division. It was all competitive division until the Bears fell off on an 8-game losing streak. Good Lord. Vikings have won 7 in a row. Great division. In the NFC South, why? Why, Falcons? I said at the trade deadline that you needed defensive help because the offense wasn't going to hold the bags the entire time, and look what happened. Kirk Cousins had 8 or 9 interceptions and 1 touchdown pass in his past 5 games. I didn't expect that to happen exactly, but I knew the offense was going to fall off, and Kirk has played so bad to the point where they can only score 15 against the Raiders, and now it's Michael Penix time. It's Michael Penix time in Atlanta, so he will start on Sunday Night Football versus the Commanders, which I do not think the Falcons are going to win that game. I think Dan Quinn's going to come to town and have his revenge over the Falcons. Unless Michael Penix wants to show out, unless the lefty kid wants to show out, I'd be fine for that. Build another prime time. But I'm not as enthusiastic about Michael Penix. But again, we're 7-7. Falcons are back to 7-7. They are, but still behind in the division to the Bucs. But they do hold the advantage over the Bucs, who are on a 4-game win streak. So there's that. There's that. Why have I been saying that Washington? Why has no one stopped me? That they're playing Washington next. They're playing the Giants next. Why didn't anyone stop me? What the heck, guys? That's quite rude that no one would stop me. Either way, I mean, they play the Giants, then they play Washington, and they play Carolina to finish out the year. That's a tough schedule, frankly. for this for this team, the Giants should be the only booked win, especially if Bryce Young's playing a little bit better. Don't have a lot of news and notes to go over um, as of right now. We're gonna give you some games to watch as per usual, but not too many news and notes. Just something I wanted to talk about, so we don't take up too much of your time. I did want to talk about the NBA, but not anything that's happened. With players. Of course, the Bucks just won the NBA Cup. Um, but I don't want to talk and I don't want to talk about that really. I want to talk about the product that's going on right now. And I want to talk about why the ratings are down or why I think the ratings are down. Hey, I think they have a marketing problem. They try to market LeBron James and Kevin Durant and Steph Curry. No one cares about that anymore. I want to see Shea Gillis Alexander. I want to see the young guys. I want to see them get put up to the forefront. I don't want to see LeBron again. Like, I get LeBron's the greatest of all time. I really do, and I respect that. But it's not good for the longevity of your league if you keep shoving them down people's throats. And also, I would like to talk about how the product is just bad and why I have not watched NBA really at all this year. I'm tired of every single game ending 115 to 102 or 130 to 120. It's just not an exciting product to watch when everyone's just shooting the ball out of the building. We need some defensive stops. We need some fixes in the rules of the game because that's how, look, teams are building rosters that are going to get free throws and they're going to shoot threes. That's what teams are doing to build rosters. The Boston Celtics are a prime example of that. They got Tatum who can go to the line, and they got Drew who can shoot. Don't player hate for teams that are doing well because they're building the roster. This is a commissioner issue. This is a rule change issue. We need to fix something in that so that the offense dies down. It doesn't run as wild because that's exactly what's happening right now. The offense is too crazy. It's too all the time. We need to slow down the game. We need to stop the point. We need to stop all the points. It's just a boring product to watch right now. And I think that leads to a massive decline in viewership. And also, it's because of the streaming services. This is a problem with the MLB as well. I think it's a problem with most sports where there are so many games, right? There's a good bit of NBA games, a good bit of baseball games, a good bit of hockey games. These games are hard to watch on for regular people. I don't want to buy 5 or 10 streaming services just to watch the Hawks and the Hornets. No. Why the heck would I do that? That's ridiculous. I think that's a point in time that we're in right now. And I think you're going to have to fix that. You're going to have to, and that's a long road to walk to fix the streaming issue, the streaming service issue, or to fix where to find to make it accessible for fans. It's a hard thing to do, and I'm not as knowledgeable about NBA to provide a solution to it, but I can point out a problem and say that's what it is. So that's why I say the 3 problems are: I think they don't market their big stars. I think they can't get away. I don't think they can make the game accessible for the fan base, and I don't think that the product's good. Just flat out. I mean, if the product was good, people would come to watch it somehow, some way. They'd figure out a way. Ticket prices are also terrible. That's for every sport. Ticket prices are just terrible for every sport. You can't go watch anything in person anymore. I'd much rather stay at home and watch it, on Hulu Plus or whatever for $5, $8. To watch it in person for $85. No one can afford that. You just can't afford that right now. Can't afford groceries. You can't afford a ticket. Not to get it political, but that's just bottom line. Stuff's expensive. But that's going to do the news and notes. I just want to talk about the NBA real quick. I'm already well over time now that I look at the stuff. So let's move into games to watch. So tomorrow we have the Indiana Bowl. Of course, this entire weekend is college football playoff. But Friday, December 20th. Wait, that'd be today. Yeah, so since I'm filming in my regular schedule, so it's going to be today. It's like it's Friday, guys. It's EOTC Friday. So today at 8 p.m. in Indiana, it is the Indiana Bowl. Indiana at Notre Dame. That's going to be a blast. Then we have SMU and Penn State. They get at it on Saturday, along with Clemson and Texas and Tennessee and Ohio State. Then we take a break. Then we move into the bowl games. That's our first round. So next week starts the second round. So that's Boise, Arizona State, Oregon, and Georgia. Boise, whoever plays them, is going to be on the 31st, or not next week, 2 weeks from now. Excuse me. That's going to be the 31st, and then in January 1, New Year's Day, that's Arizona State, Oregon, and Georgia, whoever they play. But this weekend marks the inaugural 12-team playoff for college football. So be sure you're next to a TV screen or next to a radio and give yourself a listen. In the NFL world, tell you about that. Thursday Night Football, a.k.a. last night, was Denver and Los Angeles. Denver's making a good push for the playoffs as well. They've been pretty good. I haven't mentioned them in a minute. Houston will be at Kansas City. That'll be fun on Saturday. And then you have Pittsburgh at Baltimore. I believe those are the Christmas games. So those are going to be on Netflix, which if it's anything like the Mike Tyson and Jake Paul fight, you are not going to be able to watch it. Sorry, guys. It's just going to lag and buffer the whole time. Then you have Detroit at Chicago. Again, it's at Soldier Field, which means that the Bears should have some inkling of a chance. But it's Detroit. And this was going to be a tough stretch regardless for Chicago. So I don't know if they're going to come out with that one. Philadelphia at Washington will be fun as well. That's a 1 p.m. game on Sunday. Then you have New England at Buffalo. That shouldn't be too hard to discern. I think Drake May is a very interesting quarterback, and I think the Patriots defense is also pretty good. So we'll see how Josh Allen looks to dismantle them because, the Bills should still win that one pretty handily. And, man, everything else is kind of a wash. I would say 49ers at Miami, but that looks like two teams who are just out there having fun. And then Tampa Bay at Dallas. As a Falcons fan, I'm rooting for Dallas, but I don't see a world where they beat Tampa Bay. I just frankly don't. And then Monday Night Football, if you're looking to tune into that one, that is New Orleans at Green Bay. That shouldn't be too much of a competition in that one. So, yep. And I think that's it. I think that's going to do it for us. So that is our one and only episode of Eric on the Call at the House, completely pre-recorded. And this is the final episode of Eric on the Call for a minute. Capstone starts for me next semester, so can't do two shows at one time, especially not as time-consuming as Eric on the Call is. And my capstone show, which I'm proud to announce, it is Between the Lines. EOTC presents Between the Lines. All about statistics, all about keeping it completely sports talk all the time. It's going to be a lot more of an analytical show. It's not going to be as long. It's going to be a little bit better produced than this is. This is more of just a straight shoot talk show, whereas that one's going to be a little bit more produced, going to have a little bit more segment to it, and a lot more, as I said before, a lot more analytics to it. So if that's your vibe, make sure that you tell a friend, tell a family member, tell a friend of me that Eric's on the Call. Thank you so much for joining me this semester as I launched this show and this brand. EOTC will be back in some way, shape, or form. Maybe I keep doing it in this particular style and just not in the radio show format. But again, I do appreciate all the views and the love over the past semester, over the past couple months. It has really taught me a lot about following sports. It's made me love sports even more, and it proves to me that this is what I want to do. This is what I love to do. So again, thank you all for watching, and make sure that you stay safe, make good decisions over the weekend, make sure you watch sports, and as always, have a good one.